2 a.m. net will begin in approximately 5 minutes. KC9UDX net control here. Good evening. This is Kilo Charlie 9 Uniform Delta X-Ray. My name is Matt and I welcome you to the 2 a.m. net. The purpose of this net is to promote the use of amplitude modulation and also to establish this part of this band as a place for AM activity in this area. Everyone is invited to listen. Licensed amateurs who can do so legally are encouraged to check in. We listen in the AM mode and transmit in the AM mode where possible. If you cannot transmit in AM, we encourage you to listen in AM and transmit in FM. If you are transmitting in FM, please adjust your transmit frequency a couple kCs above or below from our receive frequency. This facilitates the use of slope detection, that is, demodulating your FM signal with our AM receivers. When checking in, please announce your call sign in standard phonetics. Again, this is KC9UDX. My name is Matt, and I will now begin accepting check-ins. Any stations wishing to check in, please come now.
Good evening, Matt, WNGCC.
There's our most reliable check-in, recognizing Frank, W9JCC, and Frank, thank you for trying to run the net last month in my absence. Do we have any further check-ins for the 2 a.m. net? Come now, please. Hearing none, I'll go to the top of the very short list here. Frank, W9JCC. We have Bratwurst listening on YouTube, or at least he was. He seemed to have disappeared here. I'll start out though. I'll say not too much I can not too much I can talk about here. I guess lots of stuff going on here. My parents came up here from Florida. We've had a little bit of car trouble, or actually I should say a lot, as always seems to happen. It all happens all at the same time here. And I've been trying to deal with that, and of course dealing with the long hours at work, which unfortunately have become necessary for financial reasons. I was actually should have had to work right now, but my boss for some reason neglected to force me to work, and I did not argue, so I will be going to work in a couple hours here. Actually, less than a couple hours. But anyway, Frank, we'll see what you have to talk about here. W9JCC from KC9UDX.
Okay, thank you, Matt. And yeah, we had a crowd last month. It was me, myself, and I. But yeah, that didn't last too long. I was on for about 5 minutes or so, and decided to hang it up after that. But anyway, we kept the stream going, and yeah, fine on the parents visiting there. The car trouble, boy. Yeah, there's always something going on. My race old car, the '93 Ford, was having trouble coming out of park. It's a automatic transmission with a 4-shift, and every once in a while it wouldn't come out of park when you start up, and did a lot of debugging and chasing around, looking at stuff and trying to figure out how the whole system worked. And at first I thought it was a solenoid, but it turned out, I'm pretty sure, to be the brake light switch. Switch that's right attached to the pedal. And when I was debugging the thing, I jostled that switch around quite a bit, and when I put it back on, I didn't have the switch off, I had the connector off, and I was doing some debugging with the power off of the switch, and I put it back on. It hasn't failed since, and that was about a week ago, but I did order another switch, just in case. They're not very expensive, only about $12, but the problem with getting those things in is that you almost got to be a contortionist. I've been debating whether I should get a little camera with a Wi-Fi to my iPad so I can see what I'm doing when I'm working on it if I have to change that switch out. But it is a real nasty area to get at, especially when you're about 80 years old and can't contort as much as you used to when you were young. And let's see, what other problem we had my wife's everything froze a few weeks ago badly. Hey, Windows 10 wouldn't update. I updated the computer down in the shack, my computer upstairs, and hers just wouldn't do the update, and it would take hours. I mean, it was a long, long update, and when it got done, it would throw up some kind of an error, and then it would put the computer back to where it was, which took another 45 minutes or so. So we finally did our clean sweep and put Windows 10 on there, and all I had was Windows 10 and a couple other, I got an email on there, and we'll slowly get the rest of her programs on there, apps that she wants. So that's kind of where we are there. The garden, I must have left off the switch. Back to you there, Matt. Hope you didn't lose me. C9UDX, net control, W9JCC.
All right, thank you, Frank, and I think we missed about a half a syllable, so no problem there. And Bratwurst asks, what's more important, studying for driver's ed or watching the 2 a.m. net? And he says the 2 a.m. net, and I guess I think he could do both at the same time, but I'm not sure. It's been a very long time since I had to study for driver's ed, and they probably did things different back then. I have no idea. Fine business on the brake switch. I know exactly what you're dealing with there. That's one of those features that you really wonder how many lives it actually saved, but when a vehicle gets old, it's an absolute nightmare. You've got a lot of potential things that could fail there and can really ruin your day when you just all of a sudden can't get out of park. Especially frustrating if you've driven somewhere and you need to get home. And the car that you own will not accept your command to drive. I had or have, I don't remember if this is a current car that I have, a car that, well, if it's the car I'm thinking, it doesn't have an automatic more anyway, so it's irrelevant. But it had a solenoid and a cable detent, and I did remove both of those. And I don't remember the specific reason why, but it worked out better that way for the short time that it still had the automatic in it. There's a 4-speed in there now. And as far as a camera that will connect to Wi-Fi, you can get an old GoPro for a reasonable price, probably on eBay or elsewhere. I'm not sure where else to look, but I've got a Hero 3 Plus, which you've probably seen me use quite a bit, which certainly serves the purpose. But I think even older ones, you know, I think I paid $35 for that, but even older ones, which probably cost even less, do just as well. And of course, it's very handy for situations like that and a myriad of other things. I had a situation at work one time. I had a mechanic standing behind me watching while I tried to observe a set of holes line up in a disc. And you can't get your head down in there to look to see the holes lining up. And he was kind of shocked to see me lay my iPhone down over the hole and watch on the camera. I could see the two holes line up. I guess for some reason I'm used to that modern technology in that aspect anyway. But he was not expecting that. It was kind of a surprise for him. And anyway, Windows 10. I certainly know what you're talking about there. I do not have Windows 10 here, but I have to use it at work. And every time I go to use a computer, especially a laptop, every time you turn it on, it wants to spend an hour updating or more. And then of course you go to turn it off and it won't let you turn it off, which is a really bad situation for a laptop because it's got to update on shutdown. And what worries me is I'm going to get to a point where I'm going to have to get Windows 10 here, or something that runs newer Macintosh OS or something. You know, I'm running on borrowed time for YouTube letting me do this live streaming stuff with Windows XP, and I just don't don't think I have the capability to do it with any other computer hardware I have here. And unfortunately, Windows 10 will probably be the best way to do that. So I'm not looking forward to that. And hopefully when it gets to that point, I can find some reasonably fast but inexpensive old hardware that will run Windows 10. And with that, we're at the bottom of the list, of course, so I will see if we have any more check-ins for the 2 a.m. net. Come now, please. Hearing none, but I do see my receive meter needle fluctuating a tiny bit. I don't know if that means somebody is on the fringes of my reception or if that's just atmospheric conditions. I have no idea. I haven't listened to any amateur frequencies since 2 months ago, I guess, the last time we did this net. I just don't get time to do this stuff anymore, so I am completely unaware of what the atmospheric conditions are like right now. I wonder if Dave is WB9BWP is getting ready to get back on the air. I suppose we will see. Maybe he'll show up here yet tonight, or maybe next month or the month after that. Otherwise, back to you, Frank, W9JCC from KC9UDX.
Okay, thanks, Matt. I dragged my feet a little bit there in case somebody wanted to jump in. And I didn't know Dave was off the air. So we may fill in on that on the next go-around. And, yeah, driver's ed, I would do driver's ed. I always put school in front of most other things. But, of course, driver's ed is not the most, it's not the toughest course, so we can probably do both. It took me a while to understand what was going on there with the brake interlock, because the lower cable that goes down into the shift mechanism, and I found out later that the solenoid was up on near the steering column under the dashboard. And I says, boy, I looked up some stuff to get in there, and I says, no, that's not what I want to do. I hope it's not that. So I think it is. I think we're okay on that one. But yeah, I tried using my iPad camera to view what I was doing. It was kind of a dry run. And I pulled the power on that switch to do some of the diagnostics test, or at least one diagnostic test, to try and isolate it. And just positioning the camera on the iPad was just almost impossible because it was too clumsy. It just the gas pedal was nearby, and the brake pedal was there, and the switch is up high on the brake pedal. So it was kind of tough, and you had to have a light out there so you could see. Even though I had it out on the driveway on a sunny day, it still required some illumination. And yeah, I bit the bullet here about a year or two ago, Matt, on the computers. I had every computer I owned from back to the IBM. It was a PC, but I turned it into an AT shortly. Well, when I bought it, actually, I bought a couple of floppy drives with it. And I had a whole system, and I had that, and all the other ones, Windows 95 and XP machines and so forth. Missed out 3 or 4 of them. And one day I decided to just clean house. I got all the drives out, put a drill through each hard drive, and put them in the car. And at that time, Goodwill was taking them, so took them over there. And they took the monitors as well, so we should those glass monitors, so I don't know if they're still taking them. I don't know what happened to it. I must have a light thumb switch here, Matt, because every once in a while it goes back to receive. But must be on my end. Anyway, the Windows 10, it's got a, if you download it or upgrade to Windows 10 and you do it on an existing Windows 10, if you do the update, your computer will look pretty much the same when you're done. It has all the features, but the screen looks the same, and it has a few added icons and things in there. But if you do a cold update where you clean out the disk and put it, go just Windows 10, then it's got a little different look, and I think it looks a little nicer. I kind of like the new look. I like the look on Winnie's computer more than mine. It's a little brighter and a little easier to see, I think. Anyway, back to net control. KC9UDX, W9JCC.
All right, thank you, Frank. And Bratwurst says that Windows 10 is scary. He says he had a Windows 8 computer and somehow it updated to 10 and ruined the frame rate of the computer. I've heard lots of stories of that, although I've heard some nasty things about Windows 8 as well. I've never used Windows 8 and haven't used Windows 7 a whole lot. I still have to use Windows NT once in a while at work. And of course I use a lot of older computers here. And I know what you mean about the thumb switch on the microphone. I'm using a D104 here with the, I'm trying to think of the designation on the stand. I suppose I could look at it. It's a UG8 stand. It's got the chicken choker switch. And it's very hard to intentionally put a light grip on this thing. So I don't have that problem with this one. You really get a habit of squeezing the daylights out of this thing whether you like it or not. So that's what I tend to do with it. I do have some other microphones though where I know what you mean. It's real easy to not realize that you've let go of a button, and if you have your squelch set up nice, then you don't necessarily know that you've gone back to receive, and that can be kind of awkward at best. As far as Dave, WB9BWP, he was having some landscaping done, as far as I recall, and part of that landscaping required him to take down his antennas, and he had the idea that it would be a good thing to take them down and put them back up again anyway to make some improvements. And I don't recall when he said that was going to be completed, the landscaping work. I believe it was last month or this month, but honestly I kind of get lost track of time here, and I don't really know what month it would be anymore for that. I could probably look back in my notes here and see when he mentioned it, but I might not even have those notes anymore. So that was the story with that, and actually the way the weather has been, maybe his landscaping got put off too. I have no idea, and of course it might be difficult to put up antennas if his schedule is anything like mine, which maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I can only seem to do things outdoors when it wants to rain, so I would be in a little bit of a pickle if I had to put up antennas, I think. You may have other things amateur radio wise going on here. We've got Superfest coming up, and I don't know if Dave's got anything going on for that, being an important part of the MRAC, of course, Milwaukee Radio Amateurs Club, celebrating 100 years of affiliation with the ARRL, American Radio Relay League, of course. And again, we're at the bottom of our very short list here. Let's see if we have any more check-ins for the 2 a.m. net. Come now, please. Anybody wants to check into the 2 a.m. net, here's your opportunity. Come now. Well, hearing none, I hope interest is not waning in this net. It would almost seem that way. But of course, we could just be conflicting with a lot of people's schedules. Of course, I can barely do this anymore. I was thinking the other day if there would be a better time and day for us to do this to make sure I could always be here, and there really isn't. So I was kind of thinking about maybe doing a hiatus here for the net, but I don't know that that's wise. I think we need to keep going. Any little bit of this we can keep going. Otherwise, waning interest will turn into disappeared interest, and it's hard to restart something you've stopped. So at least for now, we'll keep going. And certainly we have good conversation here if it's just two of us anyway, or 2.5 with Bratwurst on YouTube. I haven't seen anybody else even watching on YouTube, which is kind of unusual. Usually there's a handful of other people watching, but not this month. Maybe everybody's just busy. So we'll go back to the top, excuse me, the top of the list again. Frank W9JCC from KC9UDX.
Okay, thank you, Matt. And yeah, I'm not listening. I don't have you on the YouTube. I got the ball game on off to the side here and check the score every now and then. And the Brewers are not doing too well right now. I think they're losing 3-0. And fine on Bratwurst. Well, at least we got one listener in there. And yeah, I was just thinking about reliability and software reliability, and I think you never get the software 100% very rarely. There's always something you run it to the point where it's reliable enough to release, and then you fix problems as they pop up. And I wish Microsoft would spend a little more time getting the reliability up instead of adding more features. I was quite happy with the way XP worked, and there were a couple of iterations after that, or at least one. And I still don't use a lot of the new capabilities that keep things pretty simple the way I use them. Fine on the D104. I got two of them here. One is used on my Johnson Ranger for AM, and then the other one's used on my first sideband rig, SB401, that I have upstairs in the patio. And they're both the old school no amplifier, no nothing, just the cartridge and high impedance output that was common back in the 50s. And I found that they work very well and they're very reliable. I'll leave the one that's up in the patio up there with the rig all year round, so it sees 5-10 below zero in the winter, and you can see in the 90s in the summertime, and it works just as well now as it did when we first got it. So, okay, I can't think of anything else to comment on, so I'll turn it back to Net Control, W9JCC.
All right, thank you, Frank. And I'll tell you what, these microphones sure have proven their longevity. You don't hear too many stories about people having to repair them once in a while, but for the most part, they just keep on working. And I initially was reluctant to use them. I had one for a while here on the shelf, and well, it's heavily modified. It's I think it came from a rummage sale, but it was intended for CB use in a really bad way. And I kind of had the impression over the years that that's just what these things were good for. And it was only by accident that I discovered that no other microphone worked as well with some of these older radios. So this is exclusively what I use. I may only have one here now. I have that one that's incorrectly amplified still somewhere. I think I may have modified it so it actually works cleanly, but I don't have anything that I would plug it into at this point. And I don't think I have any other unamplified ones around anymore. I might have sold those all at Hamfests. So I've got this one, which I plug into 1, 2, 3, 4 different transceivers, or not all, actually most of these aren't transceivers, but 4 different rigs here. I've got the Sconset Communicator 4, of course, the Communicator 3 for 6 meters, my KW2000A, which for HF, which unfortunately has been waiting for about 5 years now for me to repair the power supply, and of course my Drake TR3, which I should turn on once in a while, or I'll have to repair that power supply, or worse again. And I did turn on the Communicator 3 a while back, and it's going to need some condensers or capacitors as well. My bench is proceeding. The work on my bench is proceeding, albeit very slowly. I was hoping to have it done in December. Here we are in August, and the bench top is glued together. I haven't planed it yet, but I'd like to build the stand for the bench top before I plane it. And every time I try to work on that, something else happens around here which takes me away from that, so I haven't gotten much done on that yet. In fact, just yesterday I was squaring up my radial arm saw so I can make nice square cuts on the ends of the framework for the support base for the bench top, so I can glue that together and move on to the legs. But I ended up doing some vehicle work today because the weather cooperated for once, so I didn't get a chance to do any cutting. In fact, I probably still have some work to do squaring up the saw. Now, Windows XP, everybody looks back to XP and says that it was a really great operating system, and everybody wishes they still ran it, and I can certainly understand that. I do use it here when I have to use Windows, of course, and it does work, and it works fairly well. But I very well recall back Windows XP ran for a very long time, and for most of its lifetime, until the very end, everybody hated it. Everybody longed for Windows 98. So I guess it makes sense to wish everything worked like XP. But someday I think everybody will wish they had Windows 10 again or something. Or maybe we've passed the point where Windows will no longer get good. I have no idea. My experience with Windows 10 is extremely limited, and I like to keep it that way. Something else I was going to say about Windows XP here, and I don't recall what it is. But we're at the bottom of the list, and I'm getting long-winded again. So let's see if we have any more check-ins for the 2 a.m. net. Come now, please. Hearing none. We are halfway through what we normally do here, but I suppose if you and I start running out of things to say, we could finish up here at any time. I don't expect anybody will come popping around in the last half here. But I'll send it back to you, Frank. W9JCC from KC9UDX.
Okay, very good there, Matt. KC9UDX, W9JCC. And you mentioned you're working on a workbench there. I have not made any workbenches, at least not since we moved to this house. And what I do have is 2 Craftsman benches that we purchased somewhere along the line. And I think I had one before we moved here, and I probably got another one after we moved here. And they're not custom made, of course, but they do the job. I got a big vise on one of them, and I accidentally sawed a corner off of one day when I was using the saw, and they've been serving me pretty well. And as far as the D104s, I've got the crystal cartridges on both of them. I bought one new back when I first got licensed, 1954, then about around 1955. But I couldn't afford to stand with it because it was kind of expensive, so I just got the mic itself, and it came with a little, about a 2-inch or 2.5-inch long section with the mic cord coming out of it. And I found a way to make my own stand. I had a round, about an inch high piece of wood that became the base, and a little piece of conduit about 8 or 9 inches high for the stand. And of course, I had no push to talk, but I used that for several years, and then when we moved out east, I bought the push to talk stand for it. And I picked another one up at Dayton. I only paid about $9 or $10, I recall, but it came without the slide switch, and the little plug on top was cracked. So eventually I ended up changing that plug because I had it in the other piece that I no longer needed, the shorty piece from the original D104, and then I picked up for almost nothing a slider for it. So I got two pretty much pristine D104s from that era. And I don't have a whole lot more. I'm just kind of dragging bottom here to try and find something else to comment on, but I'll turn it back to you and see if you have anything else there, Matt. KC9UDX, W9JCC.
Well, I probably don't have anything new to talk about, but I'll comment on what you were talking about. I can definitely appreciate it. In fact, I got a kind of a chuckle when you said you saw it off the corner of the bench. I have done that multiple times over the years. I've got a really nice fold-up bench, which is actually clumsy because it weighs a ton, but it's super convenient. I forget what the name of this thing is. You've probably seen them. I think they sell them at Home Depot. I don't recall. I know I bought it about 20 or 25 years ago, and I'm not sure where it came from anymore. For probably 10 years, I used that thing as a stand for a mixing console because I just didn't have a better place to put that, and I didn't really need the bench for use as a bench. But I use that all the time in the shop. It's convenient because I can fold it up and put it up against the wall, or I can stand it up and use it, and I can set it up at different heights, and it's got some built-in features for clamping and things, mostly holes and slots, and there's a bunch of gimmicky clamps that come with it that sort of work. But I couldn't tell you how many times I accidentally sawed right through that thing, stupidly setting the depth wrong on the skill saw or something. And I've got a bench behind me here which my father built when I was a kid, and I used that for all my electronic stuff for far too long. It's really kid-sized, and it's not really appropriate for the kind of work I do here, and that's why I'm building a new one. But what I was going to say about that thing is, yeah, I think there's some cuts and other issues with it, but the thing that really irritates me is probably 5 years ago I was soldering something. I don't remember what it was, and the way I had to fixture the soldering iron and what it was that I was soldering, it must have been something big. I didn't realize at the time, but I was burning the corner of the bench off, or not. well, not burning the corner off, but burning out a section in the middle, I guess, as I'm looking at it here behind me. You know, it's really sickening that I did that, just because it was something I could have easily avoided, but now it's got this big burn spot in it. My kids do use that bench now, and I'd like to have them use it more, but until I get the new bench built, the basement here where the benches are is kind of a disaster, so it doesn't get a whole lot of use anymore. The bench that I'm building, I stubbornly built it out of wood that I had here, and most of that is scrap wood from skids, and it's some really lousy wood. And I took a bunch of pictures and some video clips, and maybe when I get this thing all done, I'll make a YouTube video just showing off how bad wood was and what it's turning into. The bench top is starting to look like, I'm not sure what the what the right word is here. I'm thinking to call it a work of art, but I'm not sure that's the right way to say this. But it's really starting to look like a serious bench, and it's the bench top probably weighs about 300 pounds right now or more, and it's really turning into something. The D104 stand that I have here, the UG8, does not have the slide switch, and I've been meaning for as long as I've had this one, for a very long time now, to add a slide switch to it, because I could really make good use of that. I'm always putting clamps on the switch on the stand here, or I've got a CW key wired in parallel with the push to talk switch, and I've got a wedge holding that key down for times when I need to hold the push to talk on, and I've got an old Radio Shack Bakelite knife switch here for this purpose too. But you know, that slide switch on the base would be so much handier. One of these days I will either get around to adding a slide switch, or I will be at a ham fest or someplace and find a stand with the switch already on it. And I guess that's that. But let's see if we have any last-minute check-ins for the 2 a.m. net. Come now, please. Hearing none, Bratwurst is asking, is KC9KUH spin-off KC9UDX? I'm not sure what that means. KC9KUH is a call sign of another amateur who I believe I am familiar with. I would have to really jog the memory to make sure of that. But it is not directly related to me in any way. You know, this is the oh, he says it's a channel I am subscribed to. That is I'll have to go check out that channel to jog my memory, I guess. This is the problem with being away from amateur radio as much as I am. Normally, you know, you can think of these call signs and know exactly what you're thinking of, and I just don't have that ability anymore. But unless, Frank, you have anything new to talk about, I guess we'll call this the 7-3 round, if we can call it a round. W9JCC from KC9UDX.
Okay, very good there, Matt. And fine on the workbench. Interesting that it's turning into a good-looking worktop there, because skidwood, I know, doesn't look very appealing when you're looking at the skids. I'm just curious if you layered it, crisscross layered it, or did something. But 300 pounds is quite a tabletop. Yeah, I think I'd go to Hamfest maybe, or get a find the cheapest, most beat up D104 that's got the side switch on it, and maybe you can pick one up. Yeah, I don't have too much more net, so I think we'll say 73s, and thanks for running the net, and we will turn it back to you there for any final comments, I guess. So KC9UDX on the net, W9JCC. 73s, man.
All right, thank you, Frank. And I guess the word I'm looking for talking about that bench top is turning into something substantial, seriously substantial. It's not decorative or good to look at in any way, I guess. It's got lots of, well, not lots, but several holes I need to fill in with either wood filler or probably epoxy or something. I haven't quite decided yet. But it's put together like a butcher block. And I'll have to see if I can send you a picture. You'll see what I mean. It's really something. It's just it's something of substance, I guess. But with that, we're probably ending at a good time here anyway. Thank you, as always, Frank, for being here. If there was any less than two of us, of course, we would have absolutely nothing to talk about, and the conversation is always good. And one of these days, when, well, I'll first of all say this way, Bratwurst can get back to the studying for driving exam there. And when he's done with that, maybe we can goad him into studying for an amateur radio license. I doubt that where he is would ever reach here on 2 meters. Well, maybe very sporadically, but not well enough for regular communications. He says yes, by the way. But I guess the point is we could probably relay him into our net here some other way. That's part of amateur radio, of course. We can invent ways to legally do that. But otherwise, with that, I will say that this concludes the 2 a.m. net, and we will meet again on the 10th of September. Need I say that the year is flying by here. Until then, this is KC9UDX 73, and good night.
Okay, 73's Matt, and thanks for running the net. W9JCC clear.